Donald Trump's mugshot was released and it's already shaping up to be one of his most popular photos ever. So much so that he resurrected his Twitter or X account, sharing the picture with a link. You might already be aware that there are a lot of symbols at play here, not just body language, because even if the picture was out of his control, he made sure to send a message with a few key elements. Obviously, the first factor that our attention is drawn to is Trump's eyes. This is a natural phenomenon because our brain is wired to read faces and not just identify them, but also spot any feelings or emotions or even changes over time. But speaking precisely about his eyes, this is perhaps the thing that Trump was most aware of because he made sure to show predator eyes. And the funny thing is that it doesn't matter if you're a fan or a hater, you will agree with this, regardless of your opinion about him. But what makes predator eyes? Well, it's mostly because of the angle. When the head is a bit down, like a prowling posture, and the top of the pupils begin to hide under the eyelids. Eyelids, by the way, are tense enough to portray that this was on purpose. To be fair, this is the usual way he presents himself in pictures, but he exaggerated the angle to make it more menacing. As we begin to open up our perception from the piercing predator eyes looking straight at the camera, we see his brow and mouth. And this is still a matter of angle because it's not only the eyelids that are partially hiding the pupils, but his brow is lower because of the head angle. This is another nonverbal cue that either a person or an animal is about to attack. And in that regard, Trump made sure to keep his mouth in its usual state or his baseline body language with his lips slightly pressed. In fact, his lips are naturally thin, which gives the illusion that he's perpetually angry even when he's smiling, so that makes it even easier for him to look menacing with this posture. And this is one tip that you can use regardless of your opinion of him. Always play into your natural body language and exploit the way your face usually presents your character. Now we got ahead of ourselves here because in every body language analysis, we have to start with the general situation. What's going on around the person in this case? Who took the picture and what could have been the atmosphere at the time. We already know that there was no way that he could control the way the picture was taken. It's a mugshot. It had to have the logo of the sheriff's office up and to the left, so his face was going to be on the opposite corner, down and to the right. So he could have put his head in any orientation or angle, and whether if this was intentional or not, the final product is that the composition of the picture reinforces the menacing body language of his head. Now, any political marketing advisor with average experience would know this is the best opportunity to have an impact, so I would not be surprised that he, playing into the picture composition, was done on purpose. And another factor that Trump could not control was the lighting. What surprises me is that for a mugshot, lighting should be as flat as possible so you can see all facial features evenly. This is not an artistic picture by any means, and you can confirm this just taking a look at the other mugshots from this case. But somehow, and I don't know how this works, one half of Trump's face has better light than the other. Even more strange that it's the left side of his face while the right one remains poorly lit. My guess is that this lighting setup is to reinforce the shape of the facial features. But in Trump's case, I don't know if it was his hair that he used to keep one side of his face off that direct lighting, which again reinforces the menacing effect we have talked about so far. And again, we don't know if this was on purpose, but that's the effect it has. So now we have a better understanding of the global effect this mugshot projects. What is the visual message in this case? But we can dig deeper, especially in the shape of his eyes here. Because if you ask anyone about his facial expression, most people would say that he's angry or upset. That will be natural because we are used to associate eyebrows turned downward with being angry, or at least with covert anger. But there is another facial feature that it's easy to miss precisely because of his hair, and it's the horizontal lines that are forming on his forehead. That particular tension on his forehead is that what produces the specific set of wrinkles between his eyebrows, and those wrinkles project much more than anger. It's more of a menacing look, and this is something that he could control because his facial expressions did not have anything to do with the requirements of the mugshot being taken. Another body language factor that Trump got away with was the head orientation. Typically, in a mugshot, you need to keep your head level and directed straight at the camera, just like Rudy Giuliani's mugshot. This is obvious so you can detail all the features, including the ears that could be very important to identify someone. Well, I know it wouldn't be hard to identify Trump walking down the street, but you get my point. But Trump not only lowered his head to make his stare as menacing as he could, he also turned his head a bit to his left, which from our point of view looks a bit turning to our right, like moving to the right of the frame in this case. And since we read from left to right, pointing his head in that direction gives the sense of movement and progression, of advance. Like he's very slightly pointing forward in the frame. And yes, this one gesture was deliberate. No body language analysis is complete without taking a look at what people are wearing. And you might think that this is just Trump's signature way of dressing, with a white shirt, long collar points, and a red tie with a double knot. And you will be right, that's his signature way of presenting himself. Which, by the way, was strange to see him in the Tucker Carlson interview with a blue tie, but I'm sure he did that on purpose to further distance himself from the Republican debate and signal, as he said himself, that he wants to represent not only Republicans, but in fact everyone in the United States. But going back to the mugshot, it's just a matter of figuring out that this is going to be one, if not the most relevant image representing him in the future. So it was a logical decision to go with the basic color scheme and not improvise in this regard. Now, there's something that I cannot afford to leave out, and it's everything that it's outside the mugshot as a picture, as in, this is unprecedented in the history of the United States. The first mugshot of a president. Being the first ever means that, to some extent, it was going to have an impact no matter what. It was going to make history either way, that it was unavoidable. So just the fact that this picture was going to make the waves it's already making would suggest that there's no point on trying that hard with body language and stuff, right? And you'd be wrong with that assumption, because you need to see this as an opportunity to create the greatest impact, even in the face of being indicted and arrested. I know it's easy to let your personal opinions get in the way, and I'm about to talk about it, but keep in mind the circumstances around the photos and videos you analyze. Now, there's something that happens whenever I analyze any political figure. It doesn't matter who, it always happens. People tend to let their personal political stances get in the way of understanding the symbol itself, what is happening inside a picture or video. If you don't like the figure, you just reject everything. If you love or support the figure, you'll think of everything as a master move. And I think this is a huge bias. Because regardless of what is your opinion about a political figure, which is, by the way, a topic that people can get very passionate about, you need to be clear about the hints and misses in terms of marketing, propaganda, and communication. I know that you might say that those are secondary to the true intentions of the person, whether if they are good or evil, but none of those intentions will bear fruits until they reach many people the right way. So what do you think about Donald Trump's mugshot? Remember, I'm not asking about your opinion of the man, but the message that you got from this picture. I would love to read your opinion in the comments. My body language buddies, hit the like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my body language analysis. And don't forget to download my free 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. Much love and bliss.